then I post these videos up to Facebook and other social media. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. I'd like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp, BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/Kris Godinez. They're an online therapy company. They are international. They have 40,000 therapists working for them. I've gotten great feedback from people using them. So thank you, betterhelp.com/Kris Godinez. Okay, so current events, which plays into what we are going to talk about today. So today we're talking about recognizing bullying, both for kids and adults, because I don't think we always recognize, especially when little kids are being bullied. So, but something that happened, two incidents that happened this week that I want to make you aware of. So abusers are very, what's the word I'm looking for? They refuse to see children as children. They see children as little tiny mini-me's. They don't see them as little individual people that are not adults, okay? Hi, everybody. So kids get abused by abusers because the abusers, part of it is that they expect the kids to become these little miniature adults, and they're not. Cognitively, little ones cannot process adult things. They can't comply with an abuser's demands and understand what the request is and then comply with it, because cognitively little ones don't have the ability to do that. Hi, everybody. So in the news this week, there were two incidences that just really horrified me. So one was a woman and her boyfriend, and this was on CNN, or was it CNN or AP? I can't remember. It was on either CNN or AP. Anyway, a woman and her boyfriend decided to punish their 6-year-old by handcuffing his hands and his feet, and then their dog attacked him and bit him severely. He was life-flighted to a thing, and her excuse for it was he didn't clean up the dog poop good enough. So that tells me two things. One, I will bet you dollars to donuts they did something to encourage the dog to attack the child, okay? Number two, a 6-year-old is 6. Cognitively, yes. Can they do chores? You betcha. Are they going to not be great at it? You betcha, because they're 6, okay? Kids usually need to be encouraged. There needs to be a reward system. There needs to be, and kids will do chores, but you can't just be like, go clean the yard and expect them to go clean the yard like a professional landscaper. So anyway, that was incident number one. And their attitude was, well, he's 6. He should have known. And I'm like, well, you're in your 20s. You should have known better than to handcuff your kid alone with a dog that cannot be trusted. And guess what? Now the dog is going to be put down too. So yeah, there's that. There's instance number one. Instance number two, and this is horrifying. This was on a Chinese airline, and this woman was with her grandbaby. She was a grandmother. She was with the grandbaby, female, and the baby was crying and crying and crying and crying and could not be comforted. So generally, when babies are on an airplane and they cannot be comforted, there's either colic going on or their little ears won't pop, okay? And this baby was like literally 1 year old. So these two total strangers on the flight asked the grandmother if they could take the baby into the bathroom, and I don't know whether they told the grandmother they were going to comfort the baby or if they told the grandmother that they were going to educate the baby. They then videotaped themselves basically tormenting this poor kid and being like, yelling at them, at the little baby, 1 year old, and demanding that they be quiet and demanding that they stop crying. And, we're not going to let you out of here until you stop crying. And of course, the child was terrified, didn't know these two idiots from Adam, right? And they're sitting there barking at commands at this little kid that cognitively, this little baby had no way to process, to understand, or to comply with. So again, this is showing how bullies, abusers, expect children to behave as many adults and understand complex emotional concepts. And 1-year-olds do not. 6-year-olds do not. Neither one of these kids deserved what they got. And both of them were abused. And I'm sure, you know, the grandmother was like, I didn't know they were going to do that. But still, you'd never turn your kid over to a total stranger. What the actual? Anyway, let's get back to the bullying. So this folds quite nicely into what I want to talk about today. Kids cognitively do not have the ability to process bullying when they're little. They know somebody's being mean to them. They know somebody is treating them poorly. But here's the deal. Kids are more physical. So if your little one is going to school and they suddenly start, not liking school, like before they loved school, they wanted to go, couldn't wait, they were excited, wanted to go to see all their friends, everything, and then suddenly they're like, I don't want to go to school, I hate it. You need to be taking a really hard look at what's going on in the school. So kids are physical. Kids express emotions physically. That's just what they do. They're not cerebral. They don't have the ability to process things cerebrally. They don't have the cognitive stuff together to go, hey, mom, dad, I'm being bullied. But what they will do is they will suddenly hate school. They will suddenly start crying in the morning, not wanting to go. They'll suddenly have stomach aches. They'll suddenly throw up before school. They'll suddenly, not want to be around. Okay, bubbly, outgoing suddenly becomes very, very internal and depressed. So kids don't express things verbally. They express it physically. And that's what you got to look for. So when I was working at the New Song Center and the Dougie Center, when a little kid was processing their grief, what they would do is they would get the information about, they'd ask a question about the death or the whatever, because it was a grieving clinic. And then as soon as we gave them the information about the death or how a funeral goes or whatever, they would then want to go play really hard, because that's how kids process. They process things physically, okay? So somatically is how a child is going to present bullying. Okay. And here's the other thing I need everybody to keep in mind. Bullies are not always other kids. So remember, abusers are attracted to power positions. That means teachers' aides, principals, lawyers, attorneys, doctors, police officers, judges, things like that. Okay, so sometimes it's the teacher that's being the bully, and you really got to keep a finger on that. And what you want to do is help your little one express. So I think the big mistake a lot of parents make with little kids is, the day's over, the kid comes home, the parent comes home. Oh, how was your day? Fine. And that's it. And nothing is ever said. So, the bully next door is a teacher. Oh, I'm not surprised. We're going to talk about adult bullies in just a moment. So what you want to do is you want to get specific with your questions. How did you feel about school today? So feelings, okay. How did you do? Who did you talk to? Do you like school? Do you like everybody that goes to school? How was your teacher today? You're going to want to have a better conversation with them and think like a little kid, okay? You can't have adult conversations with little ones because they're not going to get at what you're trying to get at. You're trying to ask them the right questions to make sure that nobody is bullying them. So the big red flags are anything physical, anything that is out of the ordinary for them. Like they're suddenly very down. They're not bubbly. They're not excited. They're not happy. They're not, those are things to look for. Then somatically, you're looking for, they're crying all the time before school, or they don't want to go, or they're afraid, or they're having nightmares all of a sudden. This is how kids process that. So this is why you want to ask them specific questions. You know, who do you like? Who don't you like? Why don't you like them? Do you see where I am going with that? So it's kind of like, how do I explain this? My nephew came up with a great thing to do with the kids at the dinner table. And it's like, what was the best part of the day? And then the kids would say the best part of the day. Well, what was the worst part of the day? And then the kids would say what the worst part of the day was. What would you like to do again? And then the kids would say, this is what I'd like to do again. What would you never like to do again? And then the kids would say, well, this is what I'd never like to do again. And that gave both my nephew and his wife a really good snapshot of what's going on at school and what's going on with the kids and how they're feeling. You got to make it safe for them. And I think a lot of times when we were raised by abusive parents, we were forced to grow up way the hell too fast. We were forced to act like an adult, even though we didn't quite really understand what was going on. So it's really important to make things fun for the kids, to talk to them, to let them know it's safe for them to talk to you. Now, let's jump to, okay, let's say you've been talking to your kiddo and they obviously are being bullied in some way, shape, or form, and they may or may not be able to tell you by who. This is where it's going to get sticky. So, unfortunately, okay, back it up. So bullies are really one of two types, okay? They are either children that are being bullied themselves at home, okay? Or they are children who are on their way to being a dark triad. They're antisocial. They are sadistic. They enjoy hurting and harming. There's one of the two, okay? So it's either one that's being bullied at home or they've got a cog missing and they're enjoying tormenting, okay? So what can you do? Basically, you cannot be afraid. And this is, I've come up with this with several of my clients. They're like, but I don't want to rock the boat. Okay, listen, your job is to protect your kid. You're gonna rock the boat. You're gonna have to. Because if it's a teacher bullying the kid, absolutely unacceptable. If it's a child bullying the kid, also absolutely unacceptable. And I'll tell you something, the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the oil. Seriously. So, and I've had some clients be like, oh my God, no, they're gonna, do something to me. They're gonna harm my child, or they're gonna do this, or they're gonna do that, or they're gonna kick him out of school. And I'm like, not if you have a paper trail, baby doll. So remember, the problem of this new society is, it's not new, it's been going on forever. The only thing that bullies really truly understand, or that school districts really truly understand, is bad press and lawsuits. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to drop in. You're going to want to drop in. And I know there's a lot of school districts that are like, oh, we don't like it when parents drop in. Too bad. You are with my progeny all day long. I need to make sure they're safe. So guess what, mother clucker? I'll be dropping in. I'll sign in. I'll stop in at the thing, but I'm going to go in and check and say hi to the teacher and hi to my kid and hi to the other kids and see how everybody is, because that's my job. So you cannot be afraid. A lot of parents that have been raised by abusers are afraid of confrontation. Yes, we have been raised to be afraid of confrontation, but here's the deal. Have you ever noticed that when a bully gets confronted, they just basically shrivel up and die and go away? Yeah, they're cowards, guys. At heart, all bullies are cowards. All of them. Every single last one of them. You show me a bully, I'll show you somebody who's terrified. You show me somebody that's filled with anger and raging at the world, I'll show you somebody who's terrified. So really what you're going to want to do is make your presence known in your child's school. Show up, volunteer, talk to the teachers, get to know them. Okay, now what do you do if it's a teacher that's bullying the child? Well, you might have to transfer them out, or you just raise such a stink that something finally happens. That's harder to do because there's tenure and all sorts of other things. But let me give you an example. We had, and I think John did too in your school, teachers that were physically abusing the kids. And it took a while, but both of them finally got fired or moved on. But people had to speak up, okay? So don't be afraid to speak up, especially if it's a teacher. The teacher's job is to educate those kids and to do it kindly. So let me give you an example of how I know how kids act. I was bullied when I was a kid. My dad drugged me out of the Gridley School District and shoved me into Richvale. I had this teacher there. I don't even remember her name. It's probably a trauma response. And she just got done explaining a math question. I didn't understand it. I raised my hand and asked her to explain it again. And what did she do? She grabbed me and she spanked me. This was back when corporal punishment was still okay. It's not okay. So I was so mortified. Nobody does that. You know, it's like, who does that? So I was so mortified. I didn't tell my mom because I was embarrassed. I should have told my mom. She would have been pissed, but I didn't because I was embarrassed. See, these are the things, these are how abusers operate. They count on the kids being embarrassed and not saying anything. So that's why you've got to make it safe for them to tell you even embarrassing things. And make sure they understand it's not their fault. When I finally did tell my mom, I was in high school by the time I told her. She was mortified. She was like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, because I was embarrassed. And she was like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, not your fault. It was that woman's fault. So that's why you've got to really keep a pulse on it. And I did. My attitude changed. My sisters both mentioned, you know, it's like, oh, you're not bubbly. You're not happy. You're throwing up before school. What's going on? My sisters noticed it. My parents were frickin' clueless. So you got to watch for those types of things. So, all right. So with the adult bully, you definitely want to drop in, et cetera, et cetera. If it's a child bully, you need to make it extremely clear to the principal, to the board, to whoever you need to talk to, that this will not be tolerated and you will hire an attorney if you need to. I'm not kidding you. That's usually the only thing these mother cluckers understand. So if you have to, get an attorney. I'm not kidding. Protect your kid. So usually when there's a threat of a lawsuit, suddenly they have zero tolerance and suddenly they're not allowing that kid to bully anymore. All school districts supposedly have a zero tolerance policy. Find it. Use it to your advantage. Talk to an attorney. Don't put up with that crap. Now, let's switch gears and let's talk about recognizing when you're being bullied as an adult. So if we've been raised in this kind of environment where there's shame, where there's, fear of being embarrassed, or there's constant gaslighting, constant lying, constant screaming, constant yelling, that becomes our norm, okay? You don't want that. You don't want that to be the norm for anybody. So when we grow up in that kind of environment and nobody stands up for us and nobody protects us, we take that as quote unquote normal. That is not normal. Healthy, normal human beings do not seek to harm other human beings. So when you're being bullied, here are the things to watch for. You want to watch for anybody who says just kidding when they've just said a really horrible thing to you. They are not kidding. And I'm talking like coworkers too, because a lot of bullying happens in the office situation. So you want to watch for anyone who says snarky, nasty, sarcastic, sardonic, cruel, vicious, mean, and then goes, oh, I was just kidding. No, they weren't. Things said in jest are very often meant. And you really got to take a look at that because cowards will hide behind humor. But let's be clear. Abusers don't really have humor. What they have is sarcasm. What they have is snark. What they have is disrespect. But they don't have a true sense of humor. So they will say something horrible and hide behind, oh, I was just kidding. No, they weren't. That's how they really feel. Don't forget that. Number 2, somebody starts taking credit for your work. That's bullying. Somebody starts a smear campaign. That's bullying. Somebody rages. That's bullying. Now, a lot of workplaces won't put up with the overt stuff, but I've seen them put up with a lot of the covert stuff. And a lot of the covert stuff is the smear campaign. talking bad about somebody, stealing somebody's ideas, taking credit for what they've done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things you want to watch for. So, and this happens also in churches. I'm sorry, congregations. I've had clients had to leave congregations because there was a whole clique going on and it was nasty. You're going to be really shocked when you meet your maker, mother clucker. I'm telling you, whatever. Oh my God. So literally. So, okay. So you want to, if it's a work situation, you want to avoid getting into the drama, okay? Because you don't need that. If somebody is smearing you, you could go to HR, okay? We've talked about that before. HR does not want to have any sort of lawsuits or anything like that. However, remember, HR is there for them. They are not there for you. They are there to protect the company from being sued. This is why you want to make sure you go through your handbook and see what it says about bullying and things like that. Again, because then you have a paper trail and you can throw it in their face. And you can give that to your attorney if you need to. You also want to talk to your higher ups. Now, what do you do if it's your higher up that's doing the smear campaign and is stealing your stuff and all that sort of fun stuff? You probably want to look for another job. You can fight City Hall up to a certain point, and then it comes to the point of, you know what, this system, this corporation is irrevocably broken. I cannot fix it. It is not going to change. Therefore, I am going to leave. And that's probably your best bet. And that goes for any group of people that are bullying, whether it's in a social situation, a religious situation, a, working situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have to kind of stand up for yourself. I mean, it's basically, this is the way I look at it. You basically fire a shot across the bow and you let them know, I'm not going to put up with this. You need to find another scapegoat or you need to piss off, whatever. And then if they continue, you remove. Because it's like what they want is somebody to pick on. They're looking for a scapegoat. They're looking for somebody to be bullying to, mean to, vicious to, somebody they can vomit all of their nastiness out on to. Don't be that person. They don't like people who are vocal. They don't like people who say no. Say no! 110%. So, working with both children and adults, what is going to help you the most in not having to deal with bullies is working on your self-esteem. And I'm not even kidding you. Working on your self-esteem and working on the codependency. So the Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi and Facing Codependency by Pia Mellody or The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker. Because you have a right to stand up and say no, and you need to teach that to your little one. Little ones watch. They learn by watching. So if you're not standing up for yourself, it should come as no surprise that they're unable to stand up for themselves. So do this for them, do this for you. Start practicing saying no. If you need to have a difficult conversation, write it out first. And if you need to, you can hand it to them, whoever them is. Could be the HR. Great. More paper trail, So you want to really work on your boundaries. What will you put up with and what should you never put up with? And you need to teach that to the kids. You do. Little ones should never be called names. Big ones should never be called names. Little ones should never be lied to. Big ones should never be lied to. Little ones should never have to deal with somebody rewriting history and changing the rules. Big ones should never have to deal with somebody rewriting history and changing the rules. Do you see where I am going with this? So it's really important to give your kids a good, solid base of who they are. Self-esteem workbooks for kids. You can get them for age appropriate, okay? And also, no codependency, working on codependency. No, you don't need to please that person. No, you don't need to please that teacher. You need to do your homework for yourself, So do you see where I'm going with that? And you want to be able to create a safe place for the kiddos to be able to talk to you, to be able to, let you know what's going on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really good idea to, like I said, have the handbooks, have the rules so that once it's established that either the school district or the workplace is not abiding by them, now you've got a leg to stand on legally and you can go after them. So, I just wanted to mention this because I feel like a lot of us were raised in abusive homes that did not teach us how to stand up for ourselves, did not teach us self-esteem, didn't teach us how to deal with conflict. So one of the ways to deal with conflict, to get used to it, is practice in the mirror, practice, or practice in the bathroom. Imagine that you're having that conversation with that teacher. Hello, Mrs. Smith. My daughter let me know that there is some bullying going on, and according to your handbook on page 53, that is a zero tolerance thing. So why is this being allowed to happen? And if I don't like your answer, I will be calling my attorney. Boom. There you go. You've come gangbusters. There it is. They're going to have whatever reaction they're going to have. This, a lot of times, remember, when people are in fear, they'll roar, and you just kind of smile and go, you must be really afraid. And you should be. Do you see where I'm going with that? Don't put up with these people. There's no reason to. Life is too short. So anyway, you practice. You practice confrontation. You write it out. What do you want to say? What do you need to say? You may want to do it a few times so that you don't accidentally call them a mother clucker, because they probably really deserve it, but you don't want to do that. So write it out, practice it, and then confront them. This is my child. This will not continue. This will not continue. I don't want to hear anything other than that. Do you understand? That's what you got to say.
I want to think she did something wrong.
Oh, Bunny, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at the abusers. I'm sorry, Bunny. Can you see Moana? I don't know if you guys can see her. There she is. She's like, why are you yelling at me? So anyway, there is that. And you want to teach your kids to not be afraid of conflict either. It's really important. Conflict's going to happen. Life, it's inevitable. Not everybody's going to agree, but it doesn't have to be a knockdown drag out. So you got to let them know that there's nothing wrong with conflict. If they see you avoiding it, they're going to avoid it. And you don't want to do that. You want to teach them how to deal with it, because it's gonna happen. Okay, I think shall we dive into the questions?
Sure.
Okay, let's dive into the questions, and then we will get rocking and rolling.
Do narcissists tell the same story all the time, but each time change the details?
Yes. Do narcissists tell the same story all the time, but each time change details? Yeah, they do. They have no imagination either. They really don't. But yeah, they do that. They will change little details depending on who their audience is and what they're trying to get. It's all about what is the manipulation. Who are they trying to influence? Who are they trying to work? What's the deal? Yeah.
She's just added that my narcissistic mother would tell stories and change parts each time, and we could tell she was lying.
Yep. That's how you tell, is because, again, I don't know if you watch true crime. I do. What police officers look for is consistency in the stories. If the stories start changing, you know they're lying, because the truth doesn't vary, but lies do. So.
Okay. My workplace bully finally left.
Oh, good. My workplace bully finally left. Good.
And I'll probably help interview the replacement.
They're going to help interview the replacement.
What are some questions that I can ask that might reveal a potential bully?
Ooh.
Or body language that could help identify a bully who's trying to make a good impression.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a sticky wicket. So remember, if you're dealing with somebody who is a dark triad, that means psychopath, narcissist, control freak, okay? They are really good at fooling people. Even therapists, they're really, really good at it. Generally, what people look for are micro expressions. So you want to watch their eyes a lot. You want to ask things like, how do you deal with conflict? What did you do in a situation when somebody was being bullied? See where I'm going with that? Make them uncomfortable. So ask those kind of questions. If they're a bully, they're not going to know how to answer really how to deal with somebody who's being bullied. Or they'll come up with some BS about, oh, well, I'd be their hero and their savior. And that too is a red flag. So, all right. So yeah, you want to watch body language for sure. You want to watch their face. You want to watch their eyes. Does the smile reach their eyes? Because that is really one of the things I've seen over and over and over again, especially when I was working at the homeless shelter. When a psychopath was smiling, it never reached their eyes. Their face was smiling, their eyes were not. So watch their eyes. Watch their body language, just And trust your instincts. Trust your instincts. That's going to be the best one. But do ask them. It's like, so how would you deal with a coworker that's being bullied? How would you help them? Or what would you do? That's one thing that'll probably make them uncomfortable. So yeah, do that and see how they respond. Absolutely. And then trust your gut. The biggest thing is, when I have come across dark triads, they may be charming, they may say all the right things, but there's, I don't know how to explain it. It's a gut instinct. It's a gut instinct. It's like there's something off. There's just something right about that boy. You know what I'm saying? So you got to trust your instincts. What does the energy feel like? That's what you want to trust. All right, next question.
There was one, but they retracted it.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have anything else.
Is that it? Okay. Well, John and I are going to go get lunch. All right, you guys go be awesome. Next week, let's see, what do I want to talk about next week? I think I want to talk about body memory and why those triggers are so hard on us. So we want to talk about body memory and how to help with that, how to desensitize yourself to that. Because, you know, Dr. Van de Kolk was right. The body keeps score. So, yep, we're going to talk about body memory next week. All right, sweethearts, you guys go have an awesome day. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.